and welcome to the Knights of Lorcana, where we play a match a week, and throughout the entire season, you get to compete to try to work your way up the leaderboard and prove that you are the best of the best. At the end of this exciting season, we are going to have a final tournament that will determine who is the champion of the Knights of Lorcana. But we are in week one, which means that we are at the very beginning of this, and we have 45 amazing competitors that have signed up for this thrilling season. What that also means is that we have a great matchup for you guys today. We have Malferon versus Newhotness9, and it's going to be sure to be a thrilling match as they go against each other, playing a Sapphire Steel versus a Ruby Sapphire. Now it's going to be really interesting to see how that's going to unfold, especially because Sapphire Steel is going to be a little bit not as much seen in this meta, but we are going to be having Malferon being a caster in this league, and he has opted in to cast as well his own match. So without further ado, let's get in it and see who can win this thrilling match.
All right, we are about to get into this first game of the Knights of Lorcana League, brought to you by Silent Knight. Big appreciate for the man himself. We have me, actually, Malfron, and our opponent, New Hotness number 9. And let us not ask about what happened to 1 through 8. Their fates will stay secret, I suppose. Prototypes, if you will. Now, knowing myself, being Malfron MD, I'll be playing Sapphire Steel here on the right. New Hotness, I guess we'll have to find out. I'm pretty sure, though, as I know what happens in this game, he will be playing Ruby Sapphire. So that the audience may know. We'll build up that hype beforehand. We're going to be entering this first phase of sculpting the hand, mulliganing as it is known on the streets. And we will see. So speaking as someone that plays Sapphire Steel a lot, right, against Ruby Sapphire, I've played Ruby Sapphire a little bit, not as much as Sapphire Steel. Sapphire Steel, I think most players would consider this matchup a little harder, right? A little bit of an uphill battle. You know, I'm not going to put any numbers to it, but would say that the Ruby Sapphire player is favored in this matchup. Largely because they share a lot of the same advantages, right? So Sapphire gives you incredible access to draw, right? Really consistent draw engines, mainly being Hiram Flaversham, Toymaker, and the ability to ramp, right, or expedite and speed up how fast you ink. So on the right side, Malferon puts down, he inks a Simba Fighting Prince, right? It's a 7 ink, big body, 5/7, pings 2 damage on play and on banish, and he plays a Popsicle. It's pretty ideal. Both players got their ideal first turn. We have 1 ink Popsicles, right? Oh, inking a Sail, playing a Shmi from the Sapphire Steel player, Malfron. Shmi applies that early quest pressure. It's interesting that he decided to not do Sail. I would say in general, right, sailing on turn 2, right, it's climbing you to a fast 4 ink, typically Hiram. I think Hiram in this matchup just doesn't feel as good because there's lots of outs for the Ruby Sapphire player to get rid of Hiram. However, on the other side, Ruby Sapphire, right, Azurite, Sail the Azurite Seas, so he's getting his ideal turn 2. He is ramping, he is drawing, he is maintaining that momentum. And to him, right, he doesn't care as much about the Shmi on the other side, right? Shmi is going to put some early lore pressure, but he's not, you know, in the end, Ruby Sapphire just kind of accepts that. They want to meet you in the mid to late game, and they have a lot of resources and tools to get rid of almost any threat, right? And so, I mean, they could Ice Block Shmi later, they could Brawl him later, they could Sisu him later, they could Medusa him. So, you know, the Ruby Sapphire player is just going to accept that, you know, hey, we're going to get behind in this lore race, especially when we're on the draw. That's okay. Sapphire Steel is on the play. And so, Sapphire Steel, they inked a source of ramp, right? They inked that Azurite Seas, but here we go. We see why. They played the Fishbone. I think most players would agree that going into Ruby Sapphire, Fishbone overall feels better, is more consistent, allows you to keep pace and sometimes even outpace the Ruby Sapphire player. Ruby Sapphire, many builds have kind of given up the Fishbone Quill. Um, it's just there's a multitude of reasons for that, right? Fishbone is a net negative in general, right? You're dropping 3 cards, you're playing Fishbone, you're inking to probably play the Fishbone, right? And then you're inking another card. Um, and so you kind of have to have a backup draw strategy for that, right? Typically it'd be Hiram, or like for Sapphire Steel, you also have access to a whole new world. So here Malferon quests for 2, uses his extra popsicle, and then draws an extra card. Whereas Ruby Sapphire, you're a little bit more reliant on slower draw engines, right? You have Hiram, but then you have like Grammatala's, How Far All Goes, but nothing that can aggressively refresh your hand like a whole new world. And so, things like Sail the Azurite Seas climbs you there a little bit more stepwise, but allows you to maintain a steady momentum while you're climbing there. So we ink Visions of the Future. We play a Grammatala. It's not too bad. I think Hiram for most people would be preferable, especially playing into Sapphire Steel. Sapphire Steel has a harder time getting rid of Hiram efficiently, right? 6 willpower is a lot, and you basically are forced to burn multiple cards on that, unless you like Hades or let it go. And that always feels bad, right? And you're kind of and we get a Hiram on Sapphire Steel's turn. Speaking of the mouse himself. So this always feels risky, right? You never really
Express
anticipate.
just rated with 12 viewers.
Oh man, dang it. You never really anticipate Hiram to last very long in a Ruby Sapphire match. And so, but we have Shmi down, we have Mouse, we are pressuring, we have Draw Engine, we have Ramp Engine, Sapphire Steel. Assuming Hiram lives, is in a really, really good position, right? Deciding to quest with Shmi, kind of a risk, right? Grammatala can kind of take him out for free. We have access to Ice Block, and she's a 3/3. So now we pass it back to Ruby Sapphire on the left. Newhotness9, again, superior to 1 through 8. And okay, we play Popsicle. We have 3 more ink. We can still ink for turn. We can go up to 5, assuming he's not going to play another Sail or something. There's the Brawl, right? As anticipated. As a Sapphire Steel player, you almost always anticipate Hiram is just he's going to get you 2 cards and then he's going to die, right? And if he ever survives longer than that, you count your lucky stars, right? But it's pretty unusual. And so we have 2 ice blocks. This is a pretty scary board to see from the Sapphire Steel's perspective. It's a lot of ability to kind of get rid of whatever Ruby Sapphire wants, and has access to all the draw engine in the world, assuming he would find his Hiram. He's thinking what he wants to do. Grandma Tala kind of feeling how her hips are feeling, how her joints are feeling, and oh, interesting. That is interesting. Wow. Okay, he decides to pass. May have been like an oversight. He may have like kind of I don't know if it's like a tunnel vision or something, but it's with ice blocks he could have killed Shmi essentially for free. So I don't know. Yeah, that's maybe doesn't want to risk it at all, and perhaps setting up for us singing How Far I'll Go. Who knows? So it's back off to Sapphire Steel. We have Malferon on the right, and playing a Fortisphere. We have Mooey items. Got 5 on board. All the 1-drops in the world, but 1-drops. 1-drops are probably not the most preferable thing you want in this particular situation. Inking a Queen Diviner, playing a Queen Diviner! Let's go! We got some spice. She's out here being royal, looking through the book, and a Great Stone Dragon. It just keeps coming. That is interesting. Wow. Okay. Great Stone Dragon in this economy, man, who can afford that? Great Stone Dragon, which can provide, comes in exerted. It can ink character cards from your discard, right? So it gives you access to ink that is usually inaccessible, right? The discard pile. Um, and then Queen, which can look at the top 4 cards of your deck and search for items. So we're back on Ruby Sapphire's turn. We have 6 ink to play with. And, ooh, the lady in red herself, Madame Medusa the Boss, as they say. And so Medusa takes Queen. Looks like Grammatala trades with Shmi. Yet again, not using the ice blocks. I think he really maybe he's not used to trading, like challenging like that. Maybe he's used to like using them for banishing. Kind of a major oversight, kind of giving Grammatala away for free and letting Shmi get away for murder. We have Sapphire Steel getting a Tamatoa down, getting Popsicle back, passing back 9 ink left. And we pass it back to Ruby Sapphire, who can get to 7 ink this turn. Thinking, shuffling the cards around. Is he thinking of be prepared? If he plays another Medusa with 2 ice blocks, that does turn the Tamatoa into your casual dinner. And really considering his options here. Lots of options that he could do. Questing for 1, probably hinting at the Song of Legend. There it is, be prepared. Not being sung by a pack of hyenas and a very upset lion, but instead just being played here by the lady in red. Not being sung by her, but just hard casted. We get another Popsicle down. We have so many items in play. And a second Tamatoa. The crab is back. He says, let me make up for my brother, and I'll catch you on the flip side with 6 items in play. So this Tamatoa is questing for 7. You have to be really scared as Ruby Sapphire if the opponent, Sapphire Steel Malferon, if he is holding a dime. That's basically game. And so he really has to either address this threat or just, oh my goodness. Okay, he plays a dime and passes. That is a feels bad moment. No one likes to see it. We're going to use Great Star Dragon. We're going to get that free ink. All right, we're going to continue that advantage. And we are going to play another Popsicle. Okay, so we are now questing for 8. And what is he? He's paying, what is that, 3 for another Fishbone. We are questing for 9, ladies and gentlemen. This Tamatoa is ready to shoot to the moon. A Cogsworth, sure, why not? He's going to banish Popsicle, remove no damage counters. A very nice perk of that item made during the Floodborn era. He's going to quest for an impressive 8, get the Popsicle back, play the Popsicle yet again, draw a card, and a pretty clean turn. That's a pretty scary board. Newhotness really needs an answer right about now. And a repeat Song of Legend is probably all he can hope for. Maleficent he doesn't have enough ink for Maleficent, does he? He's at 7, correct? Oh, those red sleeves blend together. I trust the number, I suppose. I can't remember if he inked last turn. So yeah, we're kind of looking at be prepared or bust, because we don't have access to Maleficent with only 7, potentially 8 ink. He's got, what is that, 2 cards in hand? This is a scary moment. And it looks like he's revealing the hand. Sounds like he's conceding the game. And we are wrapping this up, proceeding to game number 2, it looks like. Okay, Ruby Sapphire takes the first loss. Sapphire Steel, Malferon MD takes the first victory. We're going to proceed to game 2. Ruby Sapphire on the play this time, which is a really good position. I think Ruby Sapphire does pretty well still on the draw against Sapphire Steel. But definitely can feel pretty oppressive on the play. Right, so you can get to, kind of a big focal point in the matchup is turn 3 or 4 when both players are looking to hopefully play their Hyrams if you're leading up to that. If the Sapphire Steel player goes first, you can establish your Hyram, and then oftentimes the Ruby Sapphire player finds themselves in a position where they have to make a decision. Are you going to are you going to play the Hyram and match the draw, right? Or Grammatala, right, and match the draw? Or are you going to play the Brawl or the Sisu and get rid of the Hyram, right? And kind of slow down your own game. And so I think most people choose to get rid of the Hyram, if I would say, but I've seen people choose the other way too. It kind of depends on what your hand looks like. And so on the play though, you get to establish your draw engine, and when they play theirs, right, if they play Hyram, you can answer pretty quickly and continue your momentum. And so then your Hyram can keep questing, drawing, and you can kind of cascade into a pretty strong late game. Okay, we're going to jump into game 2. Ruby Sapphire on the play versus Sapphire Steel on the draw. Speaking as a Sapphire Steel player, right, this is a never comfortable place to be. There's one kind of solace from Sapphire Steel's perspective is that one, you can kind of figure out a way how you want to answer their board, and you kind of get a vibe on how safe a Hiram opening versus like ramping fast to a whole new world opening might feel. And then the other thing is that you can kind of get a vibe on, like, do you want to go more aggressive in questing as seeing how fast they're ramping, or do you want to kind of wait and respond to their win conditions, right? And so Ruby Sapphire is very, very effective at controlling the board, but in regards to actually winning the game, right? They're not as explosive. They kind of wait till they get a large amount of resources and then play dime or kind of lead up to there with Maui Half Shark, right? And playing actions and kind of slowly gaining that lore while also controlling the environment. And so that leaves a lot of leeway for, the opponents, right, to kind of respond and kind of deal with threats as they come, because they tend to come out dripwise. They tend to not be so explosive in how they gain lore, whereas Sapphire Steel can sometimes make pretty big swings. And we've already seen in Malferon's earlier build some kind of interesting cards there with Queen Diviner and Greystone Dragon. But when you play a lot of items like that, Tamatoa is pretty scary. And Red Blue can definitely play a good amount of items too. But I'd say like in general, more and more Red Blue players are kind of leaning away from Tamatoa being their only and if not main win condition, and kind of spreading out their win conditions a little bit more. So Ruby Sapphire here again on the play. Let's see where we start off. Looks like both players have sculpted the hand. We have a Maui Hero to All being inked to play in Ice Block. It's not too bad, right? I think most people would say that the Popsicle is preferable, right? Because now that leaves you with 5 cards in hand. Sapphire Steel player Malferon inks the Simba Fighting Prince, plays a Popsicle. It's a pretty good start. Can't really ask for better in this matchup. And then we go back to Newhotness, number 9, inking the Grammatala. Okay. We play the Sail, draw a card, feels good. We are ramping on turn 2, thinking about the second ink that we can do, and we are going to ink a Popsicle. Ooh, that does not feel good. And we play nothing. There is a very real chance that he may have bricked heavily, and that may have been his only inkable card. I don't see why you'd ink that unless it was your only card. And wow, Sapphire Steel player inks a card, passes. That's it. We are we are in for a rough one for both players. Okay. We ink, we play how far I'll go, hard casting it, ink a card, draw a card, pretty good, not too bad when both boards are empty. So the Ruby Sapphire player is already at 5 ink. Sapphire Steel is working with 2, being on the draw, does not feel great. Inking a Cogsworth, Grandfather Clock, playing a Pete, not a super impactful turn, but slows down the Ruby Sapphire player, kind of forces them into more character derived follow-ups. Pete puts a little bit of challenging pressure, right? It's 3-3, not too bad. Play a Popsicle on Ruby Sapphire side. 4 ink left to play with. Looking to tap 2, another Sail perhaps? No, he's thinking maybe ink first. We're inking the Tippo, Growing Sun. We are tapping 3. We're playing the underwhelming Sisu. Little Sisu, human Sisu. That's I get kind of an unimpactful turn followed up by another unimpactful turn. Both players kind of working with very little here. 6 ink on Ruby Sapphire side though, so you got to feel good about that in this matchup. You kind of double the resources of your opponent. You've got items on the field for Hiram when he shows up, and then you have a shift. You are now threatening a shift target, right? And if he ice blocks and shifts Big Sisu, like Pete would die. And so let's see what we do here. Fire the cannon, Sisu. Okay, that's not too bad. Clearing the board, and then we play the Maurice's Workshop. We love to see it. Wow, that's a spicy card. That is a spicy card if I've ever seen one. For those that don't know, that is a 3 uninkable item. Oh, it looks like the Ruby Sapphire player just inks and passes. That was so fast. Couldn't even keep up with that. Holy moly. We're playing NASCAR up in these turns. Pyros comes down. We are questing with Pete. Both players moving at 5 miles a minute, or 55 miles a minute. 5 miles a minute actually. Well, actually, I guess 5 miles a minute is still kind of fast, isn't it? To go back and finish my thought, so Maurice's workshop, when you play an item, you can pay an extra ink to draw a card, right? So kind of rough to start with, but definitely has good mid to late game potential. Pyros, he's a 5/4 steel, quest for 1. Whenever he banishes a character, you can ready chosen character. And there he is, Hiram Flaversham, Toy Maker. We he draws 2, banishes an item. Ruby Sapphire playing, Newhotness probably taking some sweat off his brow. Finally sees the lovely mouse father showing up in the nick of time to get some cards, gain some advantage, and now get his engine going. And so I think both players were kind of in a state where they were like, "What is going on in this game?" We're both kind of not doing a lot of much. And so we follow up the Hiram with another sale. We draw another card. We can ink 2 times this turn. Inkable cards. We're going to tap 1, maybe. We're going to play another Popsicle, another Ice Block, a Vitalisphere. Okay, sure. More food for the mouse. That's okay. That's okay. And we're still sitting at 7 ink. So we've not inked for the turn, debating on should we ink for the turn. Must be dealing with a lot of uninkables in the hand. Valuable uninkables. Hopefully, anyway. Okay, so no inking for the turn. Interesting. We're going to pass back to Sapphire Steel. We're going to play a Fortisphere, draw a card. We're going to tap the Workshop, draw a card, get that value. Not much ink to play much, but that's okay. We're at least attempting to dig himself out of this hole. We have Pyros and Pete on board. We're going to ink Tamatoa, the crab, legend. Oh, and followed up with his own Hiram. That feels pretty good. Both players now having access to the ability to draw cards. Not too shabby. So he's up at 6 ink, 3 characters on board. Let's see if he decides to quest or not. Both of these characters do pose a threat to Hiram, right? And in fact, the Pyros, if he kills Hiram, can actually ready another character, including himself. So that does allow for the potential to kill Hiram and then sing something. Whole New World, Grab Your Sword, Zeus, etc., etc. Okay, we're going to quest with the Pete. Get a cheeky little quest in there. And we're going to, sing Let It Go on the Hiram. That's a bold move. Interesting. Okay, so choosing to try to cut off the Ruby Sapphire player and his ability to continue gaining resources at the kneecaps. Now that is a little risky, seeing that puts him at 8 ink now. And so if he plays a Tamatoa, right, or like a Half Shark, that was definitely probably an out for those. And so it was, I don't know if it was a bad decision to ink the Hiram, but it was definitely a bold one. And follows it up with a Be Prepared, a good answer on his own. Probably forced that by getting rid of his Hiram. He says, you know what, you take my mouse, I shall take yours in return. Inks a Mr. Shmee bumbling mate and plays the, just plays the dime. Just that's it. We that's a rough one to see. It's nice to have that on board, I suppose, but not much to do with it for now. All right, still no ramp as well on the Sapphire Steel side. Ruby Sapphire, we go back, and looks like he's playing with 9 ink. Play the Sisu, not too bad. Don't get much value for playing her, but you do get a 3 lore quester on the board. You have something on the board. It's about time someone has something on the board. Both players kind of passing off empty boards here. We're back to the Sapphire Steel player, Malferon. We have 7 ink to play with. Looks like he's considering his options. Definitely a slower turn than the last turn. Inks a Pete. Taps 7 for a second dime. And we are tapping 1 for the Workshop. Draws a card. Interesting. He puts in 10 cents. He gets a card. We are working with 20 cents, 5 short of a quarter, ladies and gentlemen. 2 dimes on the side of Sapphire Steel. Now, the board looks underwhelming, but that is pretty scary to see as the Ruby Sapphire player. Like with 4 items on board already, and knowing that the Workshop can extend a turn, I mean, Ariel and Tamatoa are definitely very hot for potentially ending a game. And so, we play the dime on the Ruby Sapphire's turn. We quest. and we dime for 3. We get 6 lore swing. We're going to play a Fortisphere on the Sapphire Steel player's side, draw a card. We're going to pay 1 with Maurice's Workshop, draw another card, continuing that advantage. Does not feel too bad at all. We're going to ink a Sail the Azurite Seas. That's interesting. He must not be running with many cards right now, so inking that feels bold. We're going to play a Fishbone, okay, and we're going to pay 1. We're going to continue the advantage, draw another card, play another item. We're going to Fishbone. We're going to ink this. We have 4 ink to play with, and we're going to Zeus the Dragon. Zapper with some lightning, straight from the God of Thunder himself. And we are passing it back to Ruby Sapphire. This is a blow for blow, ladies and gentlemen. Both players giving up nothing, taking everything, like the Spartans of old, and leaving both with empty boards constantly. All right. But now both players threatening easy ways to close the game. Both players having dime. So anyone, and now both players have the ink to play big threats. Tamatoa particularly being a big threat, but, we also have more Sisus. We have, other 2 lore questers like dragons or whatever else on Ruby Sapphire side. Ariel on the Sapphire Steel side. Some Ruby Sapphire lists run Ariel. Maybe he's running an Ariel. It's hard to say. Ariel Treasure Collector. Ruby Sapphire, new hotness. Definitely taking his time with his turn, considering his options. We have 9 ink to play with. Dime, Vitalis Sphere, Ice Block on board. Nothing to target with Banish, though. So really, really thinking about how he's going to take this turn. It must feel kind of weird to run a bunch of cards that get rid of characters, but your opponent has no characters to be found. Okay, we're going to play Hideaway. 2 ink. We're going to get rid of a dime. That's a good call. We're going to steal 10 cents from the Sapphire Steel, and then that's it. Okay, maybe that doesn't feel as good. Interesting. So I think he had other cards in hand. They must be pretty expensive. We're going to pay 1 for a Popsicle. We're going to tap 1, draw another card with Workshop. This Workshop paying dividends. Drawn so many cards off this Workshop. Took him from the most mundane board to something that actually looks kind of scary. And there's the crab. First crab down. Pretty scary. Dime on board. We're going to get a Fortisphere back. And we have 2 ink to play with. And he's going to choose to tap 2, and we're going to gain 7 lore. That is scary. Heart is probably pumping right now. Newhotness9 needs to answer this, as Malferon is currently threatening game if he's allowed to turn that crab sideways. And so back to Newhotness9. Again, the superior model to 1 through 8. May they rest in peace, wherever they are. And we're going to play 9 for the Maleficent Dragon, the monstrous dragon herself. Play her banished chosen character, very strong. Back to Sapphire Steel Malferon. We're going to play a Fortisphere. We're going to draw a card. We're going to pay an ink with Workshop. We're going to draw another card. We're just drawing for days. We love to draw out here. We're going to play a Hiram. We're going to banish Fortisphere. We're going to draw 2 more cards. I don't think we have enough cards. We're going to keep drawing cards. And considering his options, we have about roughly 6 ink to play with. Still is not inked for turn. We're going to pay 3, okay, for another Workshop. That is a lot of potential draw power. And we're going to pay 1 to trigger the other Workshop to draw a card, getting value off value. Very fascinating. We have many items on board. We're going to ink a Toy Maker. We're going to Fishbone Quill some mystery card. Thinking on the potential target. Okay, that one seems to be the option. And we're going to pay 3. Interesting. What could this be? Another Fishbone Quill. He is really stocking up on them items, really trying to juice those Workshops for everything they're worth. Maurice finding no time to take a break. We're going to pay 1. We're going to trigger 1. We do not have enough ink to trigger the second one. We're going to Fishbone again. And is he going to play anything? No, he's going to pass the turn, it looks like. Back to Newhotness9. I don't really know how you feel on Newhotness9's side. You know that any Tamatoa is now essentially threatening game on play. And so he kind of feels the pressure. There's sort of a clock on him to close this game out. do you even care about the Hiram at this point? You just need to play things and win. And so Sisu, that's a good answer. Get rid of the Toy Maker. Get a 3 lore quester out here. We're going to turn the Maleficent Dragon sideways, gain 2. We're going to tap the dragon. We're going to target the Sisu. We're going to gain 3. That's a 5 lore swing. That's a really good answer for this turn. And now Malferon really kind of needs to answer likewise. He either needs to get rid of that board or play Tamatoa and close this game out. And, okay, we're going to play more Popsicles. We're going to draw another card. We're going to keep pumping every little bit of gas out of these workshops. We're going to pay an ink, draw a card, pay another ink, draw a card for the second workshop. So we've burned 3 of our ink. We're going to ink a Sail the Azurite Sea. We're going to Fishbone Quill something. Okay, sounds good. Get rid of it. We need more ink. Definitely need more ink. We're already at, what is this, 17? You know what? Let's keep inking. Who needs cards if you have ink? All right, we're going to pay another. We're going to play another Popsicle. We are drawing for days. We're going to draw another card. We're going to trigger workshop. We're going to draw another card. We're going to trigger the second workshop. We're going to draw another card. And he is digging, digging, digging. I imagine digging for a Tamatoa. Or, maybe multiple Grab Your Swords. I mean, who really knows at this point? That deck's got to be getting pretty small. One could even wager that the ink is probably bigger than the deck at this point. And so he's considering his options. Looks like he has about 12 ink to play with. So what is he going to use for this 12 ink? I mean, I imagine if he had Tamatoa, he would have played Tamatoa by now. That's just game. He has, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 10 items on board. All right, we're tapping, what is that, 7? 7 cards. Simba, Fighting Prince. You can choose to draw 2 or discard 2, or ping 2 damage on a chosen target. And he chooses the Sisu. And what is he going to do now? We're going to pay 2 more ink. We're going to Twin Fire. Okay, so that finishes off Sisu. Not too bad. Gets rid of a big questing threat, right? Slows down the Newhotness a little bit. Plays Queen the Diviner. Good lord, are there even any more items to find with Queen? And that uses all his available ink. He's considering what to do. He's going to pass back to Newhotness9. All right, so Newhotness. Let's see if he's got the hotness to continue. He slowed down a little bit. Still has Dime, still has Dragon, right? But he knows that the clock is ticking and that Malferon's doing everything in his power to find the crab to end this game. And he knows that with those 2 workshops and a queen, that he definitely has the ability to keep fishing aggressively. And so he knows that time is probably not on his side. He really needs to close this game out soon if he knows what's best for him. We have, what is that, 10 ink to play with? Considering his options here. Thinking pretty hard. Now, you would imagine if he had a Tamatoa or Be Prepared or something of the sort, he would have played it pretty quick. Really considering his options here. What he probably wants right now would be a Tamatoa of his own. Because really, if Malferon draws what he wants, the game is probably over. So we play a Popsicle. We're going to draw a card. It's not too bad to start. What are we doing here? We're going to be hard casting How Far I'll Go. That's interesting. So he's really valuing keeping Maleficent readied, whether to sing a Be Prepared, whether to quest, right, and continue that pressure. And we have 5, looks like 5 ink left potentially. What does he plan to do with this 5 ink? And I don't think he's inked for turn either. And we're going to be exerting 5 to play Let It Go. Hard casting Let It Go as well. So not choosing to sing twice. Choosing to get rid of the Simba. Interesting. Probably so he could turn the Maleficent, continue the pressure. However, sorry, quick mic problem there. Does not look like that he has the ink to exert the dime and get an extra 2. So he only got 2 lore off that turn. But he really was fishing for his options, doing anything in his power to kind of control the opponent's board. Malferon's turn, Sapphire Steel, 19 ink, 20 ink, so much ink. What are you gonna do with all that ink? All right, we're gonna play a Hiram Flaversham Toy Maker. We're gonna draw 2 more cards. We love to draw cards out here. We're drawing cards for days. Cards. Okay. Thinking on what he wants to do. We're gonna pay 2 more. We're gonna play a Chicha. Oh, that is interesting. Pretty late in the game for a Chicha, but we're gonna ink. That's the second ink, Kronk, and then the Fishbone. We're gonna draw a card off Chicha, sure. Extends the fishing for the win condition. But Malferon must also know that he is very close to losing this game himself. With an opponent having Dime on board, he is also within range. Oh, hard casting, grab your swords. Okay, good. So that puts 2 on the Maleficent. And this does give the Queen, the Diviner, the option to now kill the Maleficent. And so what does he value more? Searching the top 4 cards of his deck with Queen's exerted effect to find an item? Potentially drawing more, triggering the workshop? Or do we trade the Queen? And it looks like he's choosing to trade the Queen. And just wanting to buy more time to try and get a way to close this game. Still at 10 lore, plays a Shmi, Bumbling Mate, and exerts. Oh, interesting. Okay, plays the Shmi to exert the Dime to gain 2 more lore. To try and attempt to keep and maintain this pressure. Now, this does mean that a top deck Aerial will also satisfy a win currently, sitting at 4 on the board. And there's the crab. Tamatoa comes down. Ruby Sapphire, Newhotness9. Does he have enough? He grabs a popsicle. He has 8. He has 11 ink. He plays the popsicle. He's at 9. He has 2 more ink to play with. Oh, that puts him at 6, though. He's at 13 lore. Does he have... He's not inked for turn. Can he ink for turn? Maybe he has another popsicle. You'd imagine if he did, he'd play it. Maybe an ice block, maybe a Vitalosphere. Oh, turns the Dime. Gains the 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 turn. 1 item off game. Whew, he must be sweating. That's got to be agonizing. We turn it back to Malferon, Sapphire Steel. Can he close this game? He knows that this is it. Ride or die. He plays 3 for a Fishbone. He triggers Workshop. Draws a card. He triggers another Workshop. Draws a card. Every item is extreme value. He has endless ink to play with. He's going to ink Shmi. He's going to ink another. He's going to draw with Chicha. He is looking hard. What is he looking for? I imagine it's got to be Tamatoa. How has he not found one at this time? He's going to discard 1. He's going to draw 2. And he's going to play the Tamatoa. So shiny. Comes down. Exerts. And the Dime nets him a juicy 10 lore. And that will be it. Wow. What an end. That... Sweat's coming down my forehead, I swear. No, that was a good one. Not too bad, not too bad. Sapphire Steel takes it. 2-0. Malferon MD against Newhotness9. All right. And, oh! Newhotness reveals he did have the ice block in hand, but he was lacking 1 ink to play it. That's tragic. You know, you can't write tragedies quite like that one. So that was a very, very close game. Very, very close game. It truly came down to the wire. So that card he drew with Popsicle must have been uninkable. But sometimes that's all she writes, you know, especially whenever you're playing these Sapphire decks, that's the risk you run, especially when you're playing these decks that love to ramp. They love to play a lot of uninkables, thinking that they can ramp them. And, you know, and especially when you're playing a deck like Ruby Sapphire where, you know, a lot of your major threats and ways to control the board and win the game are uninkable. So... Well, good. That was a good game. Congrats to Malferon. And we'll see you guys in the next one.